Hey, Dave, what do you want to talk about today?
Hey, Joanne. You both and I have been talking about clients have been asking some questions about the preservation hold library. Why don't we talk about that?
Great idea. And as a matter of fact, I have a slide prepared with
Oh,
some
this
points
one?
about that. Yes, yes. Really important concept when it comes to purview and some of the compliance features. And this is the architecture behind preservation all up. And it's called the Preservation Hold Library. You'll hear us refer to it as the PHL. That's what we mean when we say the PHL. And there's 5 features inside Microsoft Purview that leverage the PHL inside of SharePoint. It's and they use this architecture to preserve content. So we'll just go back and forth and summarize these a little bit. Number 1, anytime there's an e-discovery hold put on either a SharePoint site or a OneDrive site, it leverages the PHL to put changes and anything that's deleted on that site while the hold is in effect. Over to you.
All right. The next one too is that your retention policies, and to a certain state, if you have your retention label set this way, your content that you delete in a preservation or in the document library will be moved into that preservation hold library. So we look from this perspective is that, I have a retention policy on my site for 3 years, and a year later, someone goes in and deletes that content. Well, as a record manager and an organization rules, I don't want that content to be removed. So we need to have that around. So what happens is that in order to, create a good user experience, Microsoft, they need a place to put the stuff. So they created the preservation hold library and they move it into there. And the whole concept behind it is that from a user's perspective, it's moved, it's not longer in their view, it's sitting in that preservation hold library now, which you can then, as to Joanne's point, use eDiscovery to search for when you need to within your organization.
All right, number 3 is anytime you create a retention label and you check that box, mark item as a record, behind the scenes, when you unlock that record inside SharePoint and you make a change to it, a copy of that document before you made the change is preserved in a special folder inside the preservation hold library to capture that version of the record before the change is made. And as records are locked and unlocked inside SharePoint, versions of this record are preserved inside the PHL.
Yeah, and then the next one too is that, again, coming back to what we kind of mentioned already, because this is not just with SharePoint, this will be your OneDrive as well. When content is deleted, it needs to be copied somewhere. It needs to be maintained, and that's what that PHL is for. And so we're going to copy that into that PHL, and it's going to be maintained by your retention policies or retention label requirements for the length of time that needs to be there. So going back to that whole, both the retention label and retention policy, if I have something in there for 3 years and, I delete it after 1, so 2 more years, we need to maintain that. And so the whole concept behind is that your retention controls in Purview are actually maintaining that retention, the preservation hold library. And so once the 3 years are up, the preservation hold library, the content will be removed from there, and your normal disposition processes will occur. Your disposition processes can occur from the PHL. So it'll still record where it was located. And when you go to your disposition reviews, you'll still be able to see where it was initially located, so that you can monitor that and review that as well. So all of the controls that you would have normally, whether it was in a normal SharePoint library or in the preservation hold library, all those same capabilities are available to you.
And this is one of those controls. You can actually turn it off at the tenant level so end users can't delete.
Yeah.
If they can delete, then it goes in the PHL. So that's kind of an end user experience decision you need to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the last one is retaining cloud attachments. And what is meant by this is, let's say I send an email to you, Dave, 3 months ago, and I sent a cloud attachment link instead of a physical attaching a file on the version of the document as it was 3 months ago. Well, 3 months has passed. Perhaps that document has changed numerous times since then. So this capability will retain the exact version of that document that I shared with you 3 months ago. And how it does that is it preserves that version of the document as a complete file inside a special folder in the PHL. Again, so it's discoverable in an e-discovery search if it meets the search criteria of e-discovery.
And this is actually, sorry, interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
This is actually an important consideration, because often litigation requirements, what was shared with different individuals at different times. And if you're sending a link out, you don't know necessarily what that's going to be. And so this is where that comes in super handy, because you want to know if you have a litigation going on, you need to be able to track. Dave sent out this document 2 years ago. What did it look like back then? Right.
Super important.
Yeah.
I think my takeaways from the PHL are kind of twofold. One is you don't really use this library like a regular library you might use in SharePoint, where it's actually hidden from site content, so you can't see it listed there. The purpose of it is not to navigate to it and peruse through the details of it. You can't delete anything out of there. It is simply an architecture mechanism for doing so. Site collection admins can navigate to it, but I don't see a good reason for doing that.
No, you can't do anything in there. You can't delete it. You can't move content out. Like it's there, and it's there for a reason.
That's right. The second point is, we've mentioned it a few times, how you do look into that is through Purview, either content search, standard e-discovery search, or premium e-discovery collection. So you can use any of those tools, and they will have the right permissions to look inside the PHL and retrieve results that match your search conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think those are all good. Those are all good use cases for it. And the bottom line is it makes things, it gives users a better experience. But really, the architecture behind it, as you said, we said at the beginning, Microsoft needed a place to put the content to preserve it, and that's really what it's there for. So.
Right. Another, I think, key piece is storage management. Monitor the storage. I mean, this mechanism is using a library on the SharePoint site. It's consuming space on the same site storage quota. So that 25 terabytes on a SharePoint site is inclusive of the PHL. So depending on how you have your architecture laid out, you need to keep that in mind when you're considering lighting up some of these services.
Well, and that's a great point. As a SharePoint admin, you may get calls about saying, I've deleted a ton of content from my site, but our storage is still showing a lot of content. And so, as an admin, you'd have to maybe go take a look at that PHL and just see, is that content all in there, or do you have a policy on that site? Right. Because it is going to count against your total quota.
Yeah, that's right. Key takeaways. Well, I hope we cleared it up. It was fun. So thanks again for sharing your information, David. Much appreciated.
Oh, always, Joanne. And we'll see everyone here shortly. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.